Lisa Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the clock on her screen. 3 hours left on her shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago, but she took another sip anyway. Space was quiet tonight, just the usual background noise from distant stars and the occasional trader ship passing through. She had been working at Station Omega 7 for 2 years now. Most nights were boring. She listened to radio signals from across the galaxy, looking for anything unusual. Pirates, smugglers, or sometimes just lost cargo ships. Tonight felt like another quiet night until her computer started beeping. Lisa sat up straight and looked at her screens. A new signal was coming in from the outer rim of the galaxy. It was weak and broken, cutting in and out like a bad phone connection. She turned up the volume and listened carefully. The sounds were strange, not human voices, but something else, something alien. Lisa felt her heart beat faster. In her 2 years at the station, she had never picked up a real alien signal. There were rumors that other species existed out there, but Earth had never made official contact with any of them. She pressed the button to call her supervisor. Commander Jake Sullivan was probably sleeping in his office, but this was important enough to wake him up. "What is it, Martinez?" Sullivan's voice came through the speaker, thick with sleep. "Sir, I'm picking up what looks like an alien transmission. It's coming from the Kepler 442 system." There was silence for a moment. Then Sullivan's voice came back, more awake now. "Are you sure it's not just interference? Solar flares can make weird sounds." "No, sir, this is different. The computer is showing it as an organized signal, not random noise, and sir, the AI translation program is trying to work on it." Lisa heard Sullivan curse under his breath. The AI translation system was experimental technology that Earth scientists had built to decode alien languages. It had never been tested on a real alien signal before. "I'm coming down there," Sullivan said. "Don't touch anything until I get there." Lisa waited, watching the signal continue to come in. The alien sounds were getting clearer as the computer worked to clean up the transmission. She could hear what sounded like panic in the voices. Fear. Whatever these aliens were saying, they were in trouble. Sullivan arrived 5 minutes later, still wearing his sleeping clothes, but wide awake now. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his time as a fighter pilot. He looked at Lisa's screens and frowned. "How long has this been coming in?" he asked. "About 10 minutes, sir. The AI is making progress on the translation." As if responding to her words, the computer screen flickered and text began to appear. The AI was converting the alien sounds into English words. Both Lisa and Sullivan leaned forward to read. "Help us. Ships dying. No weapons. They hunt us, like animals." More text appeared as the AI worked faster. "We carry children, old ones, fleeing the burning worlds. Vorthak ships surround us. We have heard of humans. Please, if anyone hears this..." Lisa felt her stomach drop. These weren't just random aliens. They were refugees, families with children running from something called the Vorthak, and they were asking humans for help. Sullivan grabbed the radio to call Terra Command. "This is Station Omega 7 calling Admiral Morrison's office. Priority Alpha. We have a situation." The response came back quickly. "Admiral Morrison here." "What's your situation, Commander?" "Ma'am, we're receiving a distress call from alien refugees. They're under attack by something called the Vorthak Empire. They're asking for human help." There was a long pause. Then Admiral Morrison's voice came back, crisp and professional. "Send me everything you have, full translation, signal location, everything." While Sullivan uploaded the data, Lisa continued to monitor the alien transmission. More words were appearing on her screen, and the story they told was heartbreaking. The aliens called themselves the Cathera. They were plant eaters who had never fought a war in their entire history. They lived on peaceful worlds, growing food and trading with other species. But the Vorthak Empire was expanding, taking over planet after planet. The Cathera had tried to surrender, but the Vorthak didn't want surrender. They wanted the Cathera gone. So the Cathera had loaded their families onto cargo ships and run. They had been traveling for months looking for a safe place to settle, but the Vorthak had followed them. Now they were trapped in the Kepler 442 system, surrounded by enemy warships. "We have no guns on our ships," the translation read. "We are farmers and teachers and doctors. We cannot fight. Our children are scared. Please, we have heard stories of the humans from Earth. They say you are strong. They say you protect others. We do not know if this is true, but we hope. We hope someone will help us." Lisa wiped tears from her eyes as she read. These aliens were going to die unless someone helped them. Their children would die. And they had heard stories about humans. What kind of stories? Admiral Morrison's voice came over the radio again. "Commander Sullivan, I need confirmation on the signal's location. Kepler 442 system, Admiral. About 8 light-years from Earth. How many alien ships are we talking about?" Lisa checked her instruments. "The signal is coming from 12 ships, Admiral. Looks like cargo vessels, not warships. And the computer is detecting at least 30 enemy contacts surrounding them." "Understood, stand by." Lisa and Sullivan waited. The alien transmission continued, growing weaker. The Cathera were running out of power. Their life support systems were failing. They had maybe 6 hours left before their ships would be unable to support life, Admiral, Sullivan called. "They don't have much time." "I know, Commander. Protocol 7 is now active. I'm deploying the shock fleet." Lisa had heard of Protocol 7 but never seen it used. It was the emergency response for protecting human civilians from alien threats. But these weren't human civilians. These were aliens that Earth had never even met before. "Admiral," Sullivan said carefully, "are we really going to war with an alien empire to save refugees we don't even know?" Admiral Morrison's answer came back immediately without hesitation. "Commander, there are children on those ships, families, innocent people running from killers. I don't care what species they are. We don't abandon civilians to predators, not on my watch." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Earth was about to reveal itself to the galaxy not through diplomacy or trade, but through war. The shock fleet was humanity's most powerful military force, ships designed to fight and win against any enemy, and they were launching right now to save alien refugees they had never met. The Cathara had asked for help from humans, hoping the stories they had heard were true, stories that humans were strong and protected others. In a few hours, they would learn that the stories were not just true but far more terrifying than they could have imagined. Captain Alex Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Valkyrie and watched his crew prepare for battle. Around him, officers moved with quiet efficiency, checking weapon systems and running final diagnostics on their ship's massive engines. The Valkyrie was the largest warship in Earth's fleet, built to fight and win against any enemy in the galaxy. Parker had received his orders 3 hours ago. Admiral Morrison herself had called him personally. Alien refugees were under attack and the shock fleet was going to save them. It was that simple. Parker had been in command of the Valkyrie for 5 years, and he had never questioned an order to protect civilians. He wasn't going to start now. The bridge doors opened and Commander Troy Bennett walked in, carrying a data pad with the latest intelligence reports. Bennett was the fleet's tactical officer, a thin man with sharp eyes who could calculate battle strategies faster than most computers. "Captain, we have updated information on the enemy force," Bennett said. 31 Vorthak warships surrounding 12 civilian vessels. The aliens we're rescuing call themselves the Kithera. Parker nodded. "What do we know about the Vorthak?" "They're a reptilian species, sir. Larger than humans with natural armor plating. They've built their empire by attacking weaker civilizations. Their tactics rely on fear and overwhelming numbers. They've never faced serious resistance before." "Good," Parker said. "Then they're in for a surprise." The shock fleet consisted of 12 ships, each one a masterpiece of human military engineering. Besides the Valkyrie, there were destroyers like the UES Thunder and UES Lightning, heavy cruisers, built for long-range combat, and support vessels carrying marines and medical supplies. Every ship in the fleet could destroy a small moon if necessary. In the Marine Bay 3 decks below, Sergeant Ryan Davis was leading his squad through final equipment checks. Davis was a veteran of the Mars Rebellion, a short, muscular man with scars on his arms and the kind of calm confidence that came from surviving dozens of battles. Listen up, Davis told his Marines. We're going to rescue alien civilians from alien pirates. I don't care if they have green skin or tentacles for arms. Civilians are civilians, and we protect civilians, is that clear? Yes, Sergeant, his squad replied in unison. Corporal Beth Collins, Davis's second-in-command, raised her hand. Sergeant, what if the Vorthak try to use the refugees as shields? Davis smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. Then we show them. Why you don't threaten innocents when humans are watching? Collins nodded. She was young, only 22, but she had trained her entire adult life for moments like this. Her rifle was loaded with ammunition designed to punch through alien armor. Her armor could protect her from energy weapons and projectiles. Most importantly, she had been taught by humans who had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare. In the medical bay, Dr. Sam Rodriguez was preparing for casualties. Rodriguez was a combat medic who had served in 3 different wars before joining the space fleet. He knew that battles were messy, unpredictable things where people got hurt in ways that medical textbooks couldn't prepare you for. Doctor, are we really going to treat wounded enemies? Asked Nurse Kelly Shaw, a young woman who had never seen combat before. Of course we are, Rodriguez replied. That's what separates us from the pirates. We follow the rules of war even when our enemies don't. Shaw looked confused. Rules of war? But we're trying to kill them. Rodriguez stopped what he was doing and looked at her. Kelly, humans learned a long time ago that there's a difference between fighting and being monsters. We fight when we have to, but we don't torture prisoners. We don't kill surrendering enemies. We don't target civilians. Those rules make us human. Throughout the fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Pilots like Lieutenant Tommy Brooks were reviewing attack patterns while discussing the importance of avoiding collateral damage. Engineers like Chief Petty Officer Nancy White were ensuring that their weapons would work perfectly, while following strict protocols about proportional response. The shock fleet represented something unique in the galaxy. These were warriors from a death world, trained from birth in the arts of violence and survival. Earth was a planet where everything tried to kill everything else, where natural disasters could wipe out entire civilizations, where the dominant species had climbed to the top of the food chain by being better predators than anything else. But Earth had also produced the Geneva Convention, the concept of war crimes, the idea that even in battle there were lines that should not be crossed. Human soldiers were taught to be lethal and ethical at the same time, a combination that most alien species found impossible to understand. Dr. Nancy White, the fleet's xenobiologist, was in her laboratory studying everything Earth knew about the Vorthak Empire. The information was limited, mostly gathered from intercepted communications and reports from other alien species. But the picture it painted was clear. The Vorthak were bullies. They attacked species that couldn't fight back and avoided anyone who might pose a real threat. They had built their empire on the assumption that most civilizations would rather surrender than risk destruction. It was a strategy that had worked perfectly for hundreds of years. Captain Parker to all ships, the intercom announced. We drop out of hyperspace in 30 minutes. Final weapons check, all stations report ready. Throughout the fleet, humans made their final preparations. They cleaned their weapons, checked their equipment, and said quiet prayers to whatever gods they believed in. Some wrote letters to families back on Earth. Others just sat in silence, focusing their minds on the battle ahead. The Vorthak had no idea what was coming for them. They were expecting another easy victory against helpless refugees. Instead, they were about to meet the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. Humans who had evolved on a world where only the strongest and smartest survived, who had then spent thousands of years learning how to kill efficiently while maintaining their moral principles. Captain Parker looked at the countdown timer on his screen. 20 minutes until they reached the Kepler 4M-2 system. 20 minutes until first contact between humanity and a hostile alien empire. He thought about the Cathara refugees, scared and running out of time in their broken ships. He thought about their children, who had done nothing wrong except be born to the wrong species at the wrong time. All ships, this is Captain Parker, he announced over the fleet communication channel. In 20 minutes, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten civilians under human protection. We're going to save those refugees, and we're going to send a message that will be heard across every star system in known space. Earth protects the innocent. Today, we prove it. The shock fleet continued its journey through hyperspace, carrying 12 ships full of humans who were about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Vorthak fleet commander Scythak looked at his tactical display with satisfaction. 12 pathetic Cathara cargo ships floated helplessly in space before him, their engines failing and life support systems barely working. His 31 warships surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. Scythak was 8 feet tall with dark green scales covering his massive body. His species had conquered 47 star systems using the same simple strategy. Find weak civilizations, destroy their defenses, take their worlds. The Cathara were even easier than most. They had no weapons, no military training, no fighting spirit at all. "Commander," his communications officer reported, "the lead Cathara ship is transmitting again. Same message as before. Begging for mercy, asking us to spare their young ones." Scythak laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his ship's bridge. "Let them beg. Fear makes the conquest sweeter. We will take our time with these plant eaters. Make sure the other ships record everything. I want other species to see what happens when they try to run from the Vorthak Empire." On the Kythra lead ship, Elder Morthak held his dying daughter in his thin arms. She was only 30 years old, barely an adult by their standards. The life support systems were failing, and the air was becoming thin and cold. Around him, other Kythra families huddled together, waiting for the end. "Father," his daughter whispered, "do you think the humans will come?" Morthak stroked her forehead with one of his forearms. The Cathara looked like tall, thin trees with multiple limbs and bark-like skin. They were beautiful in their own way, gentle creatures who had never harmed anyone in their entire history. "I don't know, child," Morthak said softly. "We sent the message to the stars, hoping someone would hear. The stories say that humans protect others, but they are only stories." Suddenly, space around them exploded with light. 12 human warships dropped out of hyperspace directly in the middle of the battlefield. They appeared without warning, their massive hulls gleaming with weapon systems and armor plating. The largest ship, the UES Valkyrie, was twice the size of the biggest Vorthak vessel. Commander Scythak stared at his screens in shock. Unknown ships had just appeared in his battle zone. Large, heavily armed unknown ships that his sensors couldn't properly identify. "What are those vessels?" he demanded. "Are they Galactic Council ships, corporate security?" His tactical officer was frantically scanning the newcomers. "Sir, I'm reading weapon signatures unlike anything in our database. Energy output levels are... Sir, each of those ships has enough firepower to destroy a planet." Before Scythak could respond, the human fleet opened fire. The first salvo was precise and devastating. 3 Vorthak ships simply vanished, turned into expanding clouds of superheated gas by weapons that moved at nearly the speed of light. The remaining Vorthak vessels shook as shockwaves from the explosions hit them. Captain Parker stood on the Valkyrie's bridge, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. "Commander Bennett, target their heavy cruisers next. Show them we're not here to negotiate." "Yes, sir," Bennett replied. His fingers danced over his console, marking targets for the fleet's gunners. "All ships, focus fire on the command vessels. Let's cut off their head." The second wave of human weapons fire destroyed 5 more Vorthak ships. Plasma torpedoes, developed from studying solar flares, melted through alien armor like it was made of paper. Kinetic accelerators launched projectiles at incredible speeds, punching holes completely through enemy hulls. But what terrified the Vorthak most was how the human ships moved. Their pilots maneuvered the massive warships like they were extensions of their own bodies, dancing between enemy fire with impossible grace. Lieutenant Kelly Shaw, piloting a destroyer, spun her ship in a corkscrew pattern that let her guns hit 3 different targets while avoiding incoming missiles. "Commander." Scythak watched his fleet being destroyed and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real gut-wrenching terror. These humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. Their weapons were more advanced than anything in Vorthak space. Their tactics were perfect. Their ships moved like living things. "All ships retreat," he screamed into his communicator. "Full speed, abandon the attack. We need to warn the Empire." But the humans weren't finished. Even as the Vorthak tried to run, human Marines were launching boarding pods at the damaged enemy ships. Major Chris Turner led the assault, his armored troops cutting through Vorthak hulls with plasma torches. Turner was a tall man with steady hands and the kind of calm focus that made him perfect for close-quarters combat. He had fought pirates, in the asteroid belt, and rebels on Mars. But this was his first time fighting actual aliens. "Remember," he told his squad over the radio, "we follow the rules of engagement. Secure prisoners, provide medical aid to wounded, protect any civilians we find." The Marines moved through the Vorthak ship with deadly efficiency. Their weapons were designed to stop threats quickly while minimizing collateral damage. When they found wounded Vorthak crew members, they immediately called for medical assistance. Dr. Rodriguez arrived with his medical team 30 minutes later. He looked at the wounded Vorthak soldiers lying on stretchers and shook his head. These aliens were huge, covered in natural armor with claws and teeth designed for ripping flesh. They looked like living nightmares, but they were also injured and scared, just like any other wounded soldiers. Rodriguez began treating their injuries while his nurses set up translation equipment to communicate with the prisoners. "Why do you help us?" one Vorthak warrior asked through the translator. "We came here to kill. We would have shown no mercy to your people." Rodriguez continued bandaging the aliens' wounds. "Because that's what makes us different from you. We fight when we have to, but we don't torture enemies or let prisoners die from treatable injuries." The Vorthak stared at him with large yellow eyes. In his entire military career, he had never seen enemies treated with medical care. The concept was completely foreign to his understanding of warfare. On the Kythera ships, Elder Morthak and his people watched the battle with amazement and terror. The humans were saving them, but the violence was unlike anything the peaceful Kythera had ever witnessed. Human weapons turned Vorthak warships into expanding balls of fire. Human fighters moved through space like predatory fish hunting in a school of smaller creatures. "Father," Morthak's daughter whispered, "are the humans here to save us or conquer us?" Morthak watched as human medical ships approached their damaged vessels. The humans were sending doctors and engineers to help repair Kythera life support systems. They were saving Kythera lives without asking for anything in return. "I think," Morthak said slowly, "they are here to save us. But I also think we never understood what the stories meant when they said humans were strong." The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. Half the Vorthak fleet was destroyed, and the other half was running away at maximum speed. The Kythera refugees were safe, their ships being repaired by human engineers who worked with the same efficiency they brought to warfare. Captain Parker looked at the tactical display showing the fleeing Vorthak ships. "Let them go," he told his weapons officer. "They'll carry the message back to their empire. Earth has announced itself to the galaxy." 3 days after the battle, Captain Parker stood in the main cargo bay of a Kythera refugee ship. The air was thick and humid, filled with the sweet smell of the plant-like aliens. Around him, Kythera families worked to repair their damaged vessel with help from human engineers. Elder Morthak approached Parker slowly, moving on his 4 thin legs with careful dignity. The Kythera leader was 12 feet tall but weighed no more than an average human. His bark-like skin was a deep brown color, and his large eyes reflected intelligence and ancient wisdom. "Captain Parker," Morthak said through the translation device, "my people wish to thank you for saving our lives, but we must ask, why did you help us? We are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer Earth in return." Parker looked around at the Kythera children playing nearby. They looked like small trees with arms, innocent and fragile. "Elder Morthak, on Earth we have a saying. We judge a civilization not by how it treats its strong, but by how it protects its weak. You were in danger, and you asked for help. That's all we needed to know." Morthak tilted his head, a gesture of confusion among his people. "But the cost, you risked war with the Vorthak Empire. You could have lost ships, lost human lives, for strangers. That's what makes it worth doing, Parker replied. Anyone can help their friends. It takes character to help strangers. Dr. Rodriguez walked over carrying his medical scanner. He had been treating injured Cathara for the past 3 days, learning about their biology and culture. The aliens were fascinating patients. Their bodies were more like living wood than flesh, and they healed by growing new tissue rather than regenerating damaged cells. Captain, the Cathara are ready to continue their journey, Rodriguez reported. Their life support systems are fully repaired and we've stocked them with enough supplies to reach the Sanctuary Worlds. The Sanctuary Worlds were a group of planets controlled by peaceful species that welcomed refugees. The Cathara would be safe there, able to rebuild their civilization far from Vorthak space. Good, Parker said. Escort them to the edge of human patrol space, then wish them well. Meanwhile, in a secure medical bay on the Valkyrie, Intelligence Officer Lisa Park was interviewing Vorthak prisoners. The reptilian aliens sat in specially built chairs, their massive forms restrained but not uncomfortable. Park had strict orders to follow human military law regarding prisoner treatment. The Vorthak warrior she was questioning was named Grex. He was 7 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that showed more intelligence than his commanders had credited him with. Unlike many of his fellow prisoners, Grex was willing to talk. Your species confuses us, Grex said through the translator. You fight like demons, but you heal your enemies. You could have destroyed our entire fleet, but you let half of us escape. We cannot understand your strategy. Park leaned back in her chair. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and the patience needed for long interrogations. It's not strategy, Grex. It's principle. We fight to protect people, not to conquer them. But you are clearly the stronger species, Grex protested. Your weapons, your ships, your tactics. You could rule the galaxy if you wanted. Why do you limit yourselves with these rules? Because without rules, we'd be no better than the Vorthak Empire, Park replied. Power without principle is just another form of slavery. Grex was quiet for a long time, thinking about her words. In Vorthak culture, strength was everything. The strong took what they wanted from the weak. It was the natural order of the universe. But these humans seem to follow a different natural order entirely. What will happen to us, Grex asked finally. You'll be held as prisoners of war until this conflict ends, Park explained. You'll be fed, given medical care, and treated according to galactic conventions for prisoner rights. When it's safe, you'll be returned to Vorthak space. And if we refuse to fight humans again? Park smiled. Then you'll be free to go wherever you want. Earth doesn't force people to be our enemies. Back on Earth, Admiral Morrison sat in her office reading reports from across the galaxy. The news of humanity's intervention at Kepler 442 was spreading, faster than anyone had expected. Within days of the battle, her communication arrays were picking up signals from dozens of different species. Some were from peaceful civilizations asking for human protection. Others were from military empires, demanding to know Earth's intentions. A few were from the Galactic Council, the loose federation of advanced species that governed interstellar politics. The most interesting report came from the Vorthak Empire itself. Their fleet commanders were suddenly reluctant to attack civilian targets. Several planned invasions had been postponed indefinitely. The mere possibility of human intervention was changing Vorthak behavior across multiple star systems. Morrison's aide, Lieutenant Colonel Jason Mills, entered her office carrying another stack of communication logs. Mills was a veteran intelligence officer who had served with Morrison for 15 years. Admiral, we're receiving more requests for assistance, Mills reported. The Zalani Confederation is asking for help with pirate raids. The Moran colony wants protection from corporate raiders. And 3 different refugee groups are requesting escort to safe territories. Morrison rubbed her temples. She had expected some reaction to humanity's first military intervention, but not this flood of requests. Every peaceful species in the galaxy seemed to think Earth was now their personal security service. What's our fleet status? She asked. The shock fleet is still escorting the Kythera refugees, Mills replied. But we have 12 other battle groups that could be deployed if needed. Morrison stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the orbital shipyards where new vessels were under construction. Earth had built its military to defend human space, but apparently the galaxy had other plans. Mills, draft a message to the Galactic Council, she decided. Tell them Earth is willing to discuss establishing formal diplomatic relations, but make it clear that we will continue to respond to legitimate distress calls from civilian populations. Yes, ma'am. And the other requests for assistance? We'll help where we can, but we're not the galaxy's police force. We'll focus on genuine, humanitarian crises and stay out of political conflicts. 6 months later, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Vorthak Empire had quietly begun negotiating peace treaties with several species they had previously considered easy targets. Pirate activity had dropped dramatically in sectors near human patrol routes, and dozens of peaceful civilizations had formed a loose alliance under human protection. Captain Parker's ship, the Valkyrie, had become famous across the galaxy. The Cathera had spread stories of the human ship that appeared like an avenging angel to save the innocent. Other species added their own tales of human intervention and mercy. But perhaps the most significant change was in how different species viewed the concept of strength. Before humanity's arrival, military power had been seen as a tool for conquest and domination. The humans had introduced a new idea, that true strength came from using power to protect others rather than exploit them. On a small trading station near the edge of human space, beings from dozens of different species gathered to share news and conduct business. For the first time in galactic history, the weak felt safe traveling alongside the strong. Pirates thought twice before attacking merchant ships that might be under human protection. And the phrase "Earth protects" had become a common greeting among peaceful species. Elder Morthak, now living safely on one of the sanctuary worlds, often told the story of humanity's intervention to young Kithera, who had not been alive during the Exodus. He would end each telling with the same words. We asked the stars for help, and the humans answered. Not because they had to, but because it was right.